Okay, in this video we got a gear idea for you, or considerations. That's gloves. We're going into winter, you're going to need gloves. Now the ones you see on the table here are military issue ones. These are US military here. This liner I believe is German military liner for trigger finger mittens, and this is a British set. Now, a lot of people are probably going to get a hold of this, your general type of a ski type glove. They're a nylon cover, some of them are Gore-Tex cover and that stuff. They got a fill inside the liner to keep your hands warm. There's usually a layer between the interior fill and the outside nylon. That layer is some type of thin plastic along the lines of saran wrap, and that's supposed to be your waterproof layer. These are okay, but guess what? They don't last very long. I've found that out many times. The stitching on these gloves, and it doesn't matter who manufactures them, the stitching gives out and the fingers start splitting open, the palms split open, and they just plain fall apart. Another issue, if you have the Gore-Tex ones, if you don't know the care of Gore-Tex, you're cleaning them, you toss them in the dryer to dry, you destroy the Gore-Tex protective layer on the gloves. I know that because I did that years ago. I had a nice pair of camouflage ones. They had Gore-Tex cover on them. It was before I joined the military. I was not aware how to properly clean Gore-Tex. The gloves would get cleaned, they would get tossed in a dryer, and they weren't repelling water anymore. If this is all you can get, it's all you can get. At least you got something. When I've seen people use these during winter time, especially long term, it's really common to see fingers wrapped in 100-mile-an-hour tape, or the palm is wrapped in 100-mile-an-hour tape because of stitching giving out. Repairing them can be a pain in the butt because this nylon material, once it starts coming apart, it just keeps on going. Now, the US military, basic trainees, at least years ago, this is what they issued you. These were actually work gloves. You had a leather shell and you got a wool liner for them. This is older liners, so these are green. The newer ones were black. I think they ended up replacing these with a set of gloves that had a leather shell and an integral liner in them that you could not pull out and clean. I still think these are the better option because the reason we used these for so many years, if these liners got wet, you could take them out, put on a new set of liners, put the shells on over the top, and keep on going. So if you can get a hold of some of these, they're good to have, good to use. They're what I still use, even now during training, during winter time. Now, if you get into really cold weather environments, we're talking 10 degrees above zero and 0 degrees and below that. Once you get below zero, these get kind of tough. They don't retain as much heat as they should. Then you're really supposed to be using your trigger finger mittens. Why do they call them trigger finger mittens? Because they got finger on here for your trigger finger, so you can use them with your rifle. Standard civilian mittens, you just got the big paw here and your thumb. You can't fire a weapon that way, so you have a little piece here for your trigger finger. These come as same as with these gloves. You have the shells and a liner. As long as the liner will work with the shells, it really doesn't matter what country it comes from. I have US military issued liners, I have German ones, I have whatever was on the market when I had the money at the time. This just happens to be a German set. Now, how you put the liner's inside gloves, including these. You put the liner on your hand. You then take your shell, take the hand that has the liner on it, put it in there, making sure to line up your fingers with the liner. And then when you're taking it off, take your other hand, kind of hold the end and stuff, keep the liner from coming off. And then you just pull your hand out, lead the liner inside. So it would be like this. And then your jacket should go over the top of this when you have them on to keep that snow from getting inside. Of course, it depends on what you're doing. If you're digging in snow quite a bit, maybe you're going to put your sleeve in here, have this over the top of your sleeve. That can be used either way. Now, these British ones, I've gotten a hold of some of these because they were cheap from the surplus dealer I've done quite a bit of work with. Same thing, we got a leather palm on them, like the U.S. military. These obviously are white. The canvas on them is a little bit thicker than on the U.S. ones, a little bit more heavy duty. Same thing, shells, you need to use a liner with them. You got your canvas trigger finger on them, same as on U.S. military. But something I noticed with these, when I was sent them, the trigger fingers were actually run up underneath the strap here. So if you didn't want to use the trigger finger, you just wanted to use them as mittens, you could. And then you would take your liner here for your trigger finger, and you would have it inside your big paw here. But any type of combat operations, you want that trigger finger. These are, I'd say they're almost better made than the U.S. military ones, but these would be easier to get a hold of. If you can get a hold of these, go ahead and do it. I have not tried these in winter weather yet, but the material on them is a little bit more heavy duty. I got a feeling they're going to be a bit more durable. As you can see here, both of them have a strap here, so that as you're wearing it, you can pull the strap tight and close off around your wrist to cut down on any air and that type of stuff, any snow and that getting down into your hand itself, and around your fingers. So traps more air inside here, inside the main part of your glove. So just some things to look at, show you what's available on the market. So like I said, I still to this day, I typically use these, but once we get into winter weather, oh yeah, these normally sit inside my rucksack year round. And then once we get to fall, I pull them out and I start using them. Once we get into really deep winter, it's getting way below zero, that'll be when I pull out my trigger finger mittens. A note, you have your liners and your shells. If your hands are still getting cold, it's getting way below zero. Let's say we're getting it at 30, 40 below. Well, you can take your wool liners from these gloves and use them inside this. So then the same thing. You put the liner on, then you take your glove that has the liners, and you start putting that other liner inside the trigger finger mitten liner, which is inside your shells. That's actually in the manuals for cold weather warfare, for keeping your hands warmer during winter. So these are sized. I'll just let you know that right now. The typical ones I see on the markets are mediums and larges. I don't know if they made an extra large. I don't know if they made a small, but the ones I typically see are mediums and larges. You do want a little bit of airspace around your hands inside the gloves. You know, trap that warm air in there and insulate against the cold air coming in from the outside. I could see that these will allow moisture to escape easier than these, but in the reverse sense, the leather shells on them, will cut down on the amount of moisture that gets into the liners and to your hand. There are some U.S. military trigger finger mittens shells that have a fur lining on the back. Some people like those. I knew people that had bought those on the surplus market and they used those when they were in the military. The reason for that fur lining on the back, that big piece of fur that goes all the way across here, believe it or not, is for you to wipe your nose on. That's actually what it's for, is for you to bring the glove up to your face. You wipe your nose on that fur lining because your nose is running because of the cold air. It does protect a little bit on the outside of your hand, obviously, but the main reason it's there is for wiping your nose. So, now for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and Militia movements, always remember, essayons.